But going back to these Celebrate records, is this the same thing as like when they gray key a device? I have friends that work in the feds, and if they can't get access from Apple, they gray key something to just get all the access. So this is standard that these are admissible in court,
Absolutely.
and this is what it is. And so you're telling me the prosecutor's saying there's no way that's that's accurate.
They're challenging Celebrate records that the defense is in possession with, that they're going to attempt to say doesn't really mean what it says, and call an expert to say, for example, there is a Google search, which is of critical importance in this case, where
Haas dying cold or something.
It's a typo, but how long to die in the cold? And that search, according to the defense Celebrate records, was made by Jennifer McCabe at 2:27 in the morning. Now, according to all of those people, they never saw John O'Keefe. They left the home around 1 o'clock in the morning and learned about this at, say, 5:30 in the morning when a frantic Karen Reed was running around saying, "Where's John?" So obviously, if there is a credible argument that Jennifer McCabe was searching at 2:27 a.m., how long to die in the cold, mind you, 4 minutes after Brian Albert and Brian Higgins claim they butt dialed each other, but nobody picked up the phone for the record show is a 22-second answered call, but none of them know. Just an hour and a half after Jennifer McCabe claims that she butt dialed 6 or 7 times John O'Keefe right around the time he was dying, and the defense is going to argue they were looking for his phone. That's why she was calling him. So put that all in context. And then if she's, after that timeline, performing a Google search after this Higgins and Albert call, how long to die in the cold, when she shouldn't know about this, then this case is over. If that's a credible Google search, it doesn't matter what happens after that point. This case is over. So the Celebrate records show that Google search was made at 2:27 a.m. and was deleted by Jennifer McCabe, along with many other calls and texts that she made during this time period. Now, by the way, if you look at her call records for January 29th of 22, which would have been those early morning hours after midnight, all of her records for those 4 or 5 hours are deleted, but nothing else. So they don't know about the butt dials. They don't know about the deletions. It's all a mistake. And she stood in court, looked at the jury with a straight face and said, "I didn't do that. I didn't delete anything." And the DA apparently is going to call an expert who's going to attempt to say, those records must not tell the full story. And again, anyone who does this for a living, to see that the DA is attempting to undo the reliability of Celebrate records, which they initially sought. We are in bizarro world, and you wonder just if that alone isn't enough to make them wonder. And but that's just part of it. I mean, there's going to be experts who testify for the defense, and this is beyond bonkers. We know the feds are doing an investigation, and as part of that investigation, they retained an independent accident reconstruction firm. I mean, that's like a cottage industry, an expert, whether it be car accident cases or vehicular homicide cases. So during their investigation, the feds wanted to know, let's assume that they're agnostic as to what happened. So naturally, they want to know, let's see what they tell us. So they hire a firm with 3 different experts who analyze all the evidence, and 3 out of 3 apparently come back to them and say that the damage on the car, combined with the damage to John O'Keefe's body, combined with the district attorney's theory of her backing into him at this rate of speed, and combined with the taillight and all of that they're not consistent. In other words, in layman's terms, it's in our expert opinion, he was not hit by her car. 3 out of 3. Now, the defense is aware of this, not because they hired a bunch of experts to, how much to pay to say what we want, because the federal government told them. They felt compelled, as part of the disclosures and fundamental fairness, that knowing that she's on trial, to let the defense know. So now these witnesses are going to testify for the defense, and the prosecution has no expert to rebut this. And the defense is going to establish that these experts, they're not going to be able to say that they were part of a federal investigation, but they're going to be able to say, we didn't engage them for the purpose of paying them for an opinion. That, we learned of
Yes.
them, we got these reports after the fact, and then they're going to march in these three witnesses who are all going to say, this makes no sense. And it's easy to understand why, because they claim that she backed into him at 24 miles an hour, give or take.
It's 62. She was
Right.
62 feet away, which doesn't even make sense to me how she could accelerate in an SUV.
Well, not
going
only
backwards.
that, but there's testimony
In the
about cars
snow.
were lined up on the side of the street. But so, if you are, I mean, the medical examiner hasn't testified yet, but somehow autopsy photos are out there. It's probably shouldn't happen out of respect.
Of course there are.
But
Of
no,
course,
I mean,
people.
it is what it is. But just, what's out there is out there. And when you look at the injuries to John O'Keefe's body, he has a very large, probably, I'm not a medical expert, fatal gash to the back of his head. He has, his face is bruised, his eyes are bulging. He's got a whole bunch of scratches on his arms. But what he doesn't have is what appears to be anything that would be that blunt force trauma to cause that. It doesn't match the car. And he's also missing a belt. And the idea of being hit by a car at 20 miles an hour, if you're wearing a fastened belt, that's not going to fly off you.
No.
You've seen high-speed, awful car accidents on the interstate. I mean, I have seen this stuff, unfortunately. Sometimes you see someone's shoes go flying off. But 20 miles an hour wearing a fastened belt doesn't seem believable. The other problem they have, this being like a modern SUV, the taillight is made of polycarbonate, which is tantamount to that shatterproof type of glass. It's hard as a rock. It doesn't shatter in the classic sense that glass would shatter. And the state police, including the expert who has all of these problems, not expert, the lead investigator who was talking about getting gifts and looking for nudes, that guy, and his department claims they found 45 pieces of shattered taillight on the lawn. And I don't think, again, I'm not an expert, that doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense at all. And look, I'm not an expert or anything, but I have a modern
Common
vehicle,
sense.
and I shattered my tail light, and it's like 3 pieces.
you would potentially get a shard, I believe, something like that, which they also claim they recovered. But I think the point is, I assume, and I don't know this, I'm speculating, but it's what I call informed speculation, just as you said.
Sure.
Basic common sense of analysis, that I would imagine that the polycarbonate would factor into these experts' opinion, amongst other things, that this scenario, this hypothesis that's theorized by the DA just doesn't wash with the available evidence.
That would make sense. But again, you say common sense, which is something that I think has gone out the window long ago in our society, but also in this case, apparently. Okay, so talk to me about this lead investigator. Who is this lead investigator? Is this the state trooper? I can't recall his name, but who is this person?
His name is Michael Proctor, and the irony is he became the lead investigator after the local police essentially recused themselves because of all this incestuous relationships. So,
and didn't Michael Proctor's mother refer to the Alberts as like family to them?
Yeah, no, they go to weddings together. They babysit children. Now, bear in mind, for the better part of almost 2 years, Proctor and the district attorney, not the poor guy who goes to court every day and has to try this case and, frankly, in my view, embarrass himself. I'm talking about the elected official, have both denied that Michael Proctor had any relationship whatsoever with any of the witnesses in this case. That is patently false. The DA has never corrected that. They've never had to stand to account for that. It's outrageous.